My name is Media Mitipayo.
And my name is Noor Shahida binti Muhammad Sharizam. So I'm the first presented. Today I will present about the background of Malay rulers. Constitutionally, traditional Malay rulers are responsible for 9 of the Malaysian states, usually known as Malay countries. Majorly born Malay male Muslim are, according to state constitution, able to qualify only for the throne. Inherited monarchies focus on ethnic primogeniture, Kedah, Kelantan, Johor, Perlis, Pahang, Selangor, and Terengganu. 3 branches of the royal family pass through Perak thrones based on ethnic seniority. The elective monarchy is a state Negeri Sembilan where the dynastic chief elective the ruler from members of the royal family. All rulers use the Sultan title except for Perlis and Negeri Sembilan. The Raja rules is known as the Perlis ruler, while the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is known as the 9 rulers. Yang di-Pertuan Agong, also known as the Paramount ruler or the supreme head of the king, is a Malaysian hereditary monarch and head of government. The United Kingdom was formed when in 1957 the Federation of Malaysia gained independence. The Conference of Governor elected the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, which is exchanged de facto between the 9 leaders of Malay states, making it one of the few elective monarchies in the world. The 16th and present Yang di-Pertuan Agong succeeded by Sultan Muhammad V of Kelantan, who, taking full on January 6, 2019, is Sultan Abdul of Pahang. It took office commandments on 24 January and sworn into office in Istana Negara. He was voted in a special meeting of the Conference of Governor on 31 January, which is National Place of Malay. The full name of the Holy Majesty is Al Sultan Abdullah Riyatuddin Al Mustabilah Shah Ibni Almarhum Sultan Haji Ahmad Shah Al Musta'in Billah. So the next I will present about the role and function of Malay rulers. The position of the Malay rulers is that of each of the 9 rulers is both the head of state and the religious leader of Islam in the region. The rulers are not part of the real state management like most political monarch around the world. Therefore, they must work on the recommendation of the head of state called the Menteri Besar. They are bound by convention. On the other side, each state leaders has the discretion to nominate the Menteri Besar. The majority of the state legislative assembly and Menteri Besar's order to dissolve the state assembly. The powers of the monarch are over time restricted, although they also discuss specific limitation of their influence. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong is the federal head of state. He acts as the Malaysian Army commanders in chief and conduct diplomatic assignments such as welcoming international ambassadors and representing Malaysia on state visits. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong is Islam's spiritual chief and both in his own state and in the four state rulers, which is Penang, Malacca, Sabah, and Sarawak, and in the federal territory. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong is expected, apart from the position of the head of Islam, to delegate to a ruler all of its powers. Like other rulers, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong behaves according to the advice and discretion law of the Prime Minister, as he appoints leader to lead a majority in the lower house of parliament, Dewan Rakyat, and refuses to dissolve the parliament. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong appoints Yang di-Pertuan Negeri informal governors for the four states leaders on the recommendation of the Prime Minister and the head minister of the state.
Okay, so for the next part, I will be explaining about the roles and the functions of Conference of Ruler. But before I started explaining the roles and the function, let me just briefly explain the definition of the Conference of Ruler. Okay, so based from my research, I have come to know that Conference of Ruler, from the word conference, is a constitutional body which is comprises of the rulers and the Yang di-Pertua Negeri. And not only that, I also know that the other words or the other names of the Conference of Ruler is actually known as a Durbar, or they also is known as the Majlis Raja-Raja in Malay. And the Conference of Ruler is the only institution in the world of its kind and is established by the Article 38 of the Malaysian Constitution. Okay, so now that you know the definition, right? So now I'll be moving on the roles and the functions of Conference of Ruler. Okay, so the first and foremost functions or roles of the Conference of Ruler is actually to elect and remove the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and his deputy every 5 years or whenever the positions are vacant or void. This position either be vacant or void either through the death, either through the resignation, or either through the removal from the office. And the second roles and functions of the Conference of Rulers is actually to decide on the extension of any religious acts, observances, or ceremonies to the country as a whole. And then last but not least, the roles and the functions of Conference of Rulers is actually to give or withhold consent, which is from the veto rights of the matters, such as first through the matters of constitutional amendments relating to the matters in Article 159(6). Secondly is through the matters such as the laws affecting the privileges, position, honors, or dignities of the rulers. And thirdly is the matters regarding the laws amending Article 152, which is the Malay language, or the Article 153, which is the special positions of Bumiputra. And the fourth matters is actually the alterations to state boundaries. And the last but not least is actually they are also responsible towards the matters such as the certain appointment, such as members of the Public Service Commissions and the Election Commission. And the explanation above is actually what are the roles and the functions, the most important and crucial functions of the Conference of Ruler here in Malaysia itself. Okay, and then for the last part of this documentary video, I will be explaining about the roles and the functions of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So before I started moving on towards explaining the roles and the functions of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, I will be briefly explaining about who is actually the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and how is he being elected. Okay, so Yang di-Pertuan Agong is actually the Malaysia's head of state, in which he is being elected by the Conference of Ruler through the process of rotation from the rulers of the 9 Malay states. And as a constitutional monarch, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is required to exercise his executive powers on the advice of the cabinet. And the monarch's powers are basically divided into two broad categories, in which firstly is the powers that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong exercise on the advice of the Prime Minister, the Minister, the Cabinet, the Conference of Rulers, or some other officer or institution. And secondly is the powers that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong has exercised as his discretion, in which is without the consent of any other authority. And the roles and the functions of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is firstly is to call a conference of rulers concerned exclusively with the Royal Highness rights, status, honors and dignities. And then secondly is the roles and functions of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is to contribute in the appointment of an Attorney General and judges based on the recommendations from the Prime Minister. And the third role and functions of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is entitled to issue amnesty or suspend sentences on any offence brought before the military court and on crimes committed in the Kuala Lumpur, Labuan and the Putrajaya Federal Territories. And then the last but not least roles and functions of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is actually to command in chief of the military forces.